So I'm just coming down to do another workout, and I wanted to continue to talk a little bit on this concept of waste and just throw out more ways, more context you can kind of keep it in mind in. So I'm just getting down to start the workout, and I never took the plates off the bar from my last time down here. So I am just going to jump in at the weight it's at, and you might think that this is potentially something that's risky. Like this is going to be another day where I'm starting with a power shrug. And last time you saw me start with just 45s on the bar, and that's just because it's what happened to be on the bar when I started. This time I have the 45s and 35s on, and these are power shrugs. Like this is something where I can't handle what I can handle on a deadlift for it, but I keep in mind what my max deadlift is when I'm considering the starting weight. If it's something that's well above 50% of my max deadlift, then I would take plates off. But for this, I don't feel the need to start at a lighter weight. This is well within a low, safe weight range for me to start for a warm-up, and so I'm just going to use the weight that's already on there. And then another thing to kind of demonstrate the variability, last time, and I'm still using the easy curl bar for this, but I had my hands on the actual bent position of the easy curl bar on the bar. This time I'm going to be gripping out on the plates. Strongman, when you're gripping things, it's always going to be different grip positions. We do things like the axle bar for deadlifts. We do things like carries where you might be holding the frame of something, and it's really thin handles. You've got things like the Dinny stones, where one is a really thick metal ring, another one's a really small metal ring that you're holding that'll cut into your hands a bit. And so all these different kinds of implements you'll have to be able to grip onto in different positions. So it's important to be comfortable in a variety of positions, both in terms of how your hands are gripping and in terms of where you're actually letting them grip onto the implement. So I'm going to demonstrate just the power shrug again. I'm not really going to talk much on it. I realized last time talking as I lift makes me struggle a lot with both. So I'm going to keep that mostly separate from here on out. All right, when trying to figure out lift selection, one of those things I was talking about was trying to pick rather comprehensive movements. So I'm just going to demonstrate a lift that I include variations of very regularly. So it might be with a different kind of implement that I'm doing this lift, but I always tend to include this, I'd say at least once a week. But clean and push press is one of my favorite exercises in terms of being a rather comprehensive full body lift. I mean, there's things that's definitely targeting not as much as you would need to in like upper back and lat development. You're gonna for sure want to be doing rows and stuff in addition. I mean, you're using them, but it is a rather comprehensive lift. I mean, you're starting out through an initial pull position, working the posterior chain, and essentially, I mean, if you want to simplify it to powerlifting terms, you're doing your deadlift there. Once you get it up to the chest and clean, that portion where you're cleaning is where you're involving the most of your back and then biceps as well. So it's that hip hinge. You're still going to continue, I guess to some degree, working the muscle groups that would be involved with the deadlift there during that portion where you're cleaning it up. That hip hinge is a major component of it. So glutes are going to be pretty critical for that. The last portion, when you're getting to the press, you are working all of the pressing muscle groups of the upper body as well as the quads. You're going to be doing a push press. So it's not just a clean and press. I do distinctly mean doing a clean and push press, because there is quad involvement in that pull portion for sure, but it's not the primary emphasis. Having this secondary portion of the lift that emphasizes it helps it be a little bit more comprehensive of a lift, as long as you're going sufficiently heavy. If you were just using equal weights between the two and doing a clean and press versus a clean and push press, at least for everything that isn't your quads, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck out of the clean and press then. But if you are matching the intensity and upping the weight with your clean and push press, now that you can use momentum out of the bottom of that press, then that would be, I would say, a more effective, more efficient lift. That might not be the case for everyone. It is for sure for me because I'm a weak presser. Strong in pulls, very weak in pressing. So it's always going to be the most limited portion of my lift is that press portion. So I can definitely go heavier with the push press than I could pressing. I mean, everybody can go heavier with a push press than they can with a press, but I won't be as limited by the clean portion where someone else might be. It's going to be the press for me. So there's not any assistance in a clean and push press during that clean portion that you're getting out of it. You're not getting some extra muscle group involvement. So there's still the same limiting factors between the two up until the point it gets to the chest. So if you're not somebody that is as limited by pressing as I am, this exercise might not be as applicable to you. I still think for the most part, it is a generally good comprehensive exercise to still include in addition to your clean and press if you'd rather just focus on that. But clean and push press, definitely one of my favorite exercises. I'm gonna just demonstrate it right now. Haven't been going this heavy in a while, so we'll see how this goes. All right, this time I'm gonna be smart enough to pop off the slippers while trying that, because I did not have stable footing for that, which was stupid because I have not been going heavy on clean and push press for a while. But yeah, just wanna demonstrate with hopefully what will look like a little better form again this time. You'll see at the end there, I was just trying to work on my overhead stability a little bit. I would not have been able to get another full rep in, so I just decided to hold it on the second there. Not something I do every set, just I know I need to work on it right now. It's something that I haven't been practicing enough, and I can tell I'm unstable overhead, so just wanted to use that second rep to a little bit extra benefit instead of going and failing a third. That's all I wanted to demonstrate though. Hope that looked a little better. Alright, so I just wanted to include my other main mover for the day. Since we were talking about trying to make things rather comprehensive, and that exercise, the clean and push press, is definitely neglecting lats a little bit for at least the amount of involvement they get in strongman. Neglects pecs too, but not that we don't need pectoral development, but I would argue it's a less critical aspect of the sport. Almost all the pressing we do is vertical pressing instead of horizontal pressing, and as a result, it's certainly more shoulder dominant. There are things like even the stones, for instance. I mean, you're basically using your chest to hold a fly the whole time to prevent the stone from slipping out. So you do still want to work pecs a lot, but they are far less critical to most of the movements we do in strongman. So you will see that reflected in my training as well as my strength progression. I definitely have noticed that when I was following more general power building with less of a strongman focused programming, my bench was better than it tends to be now, even at periods of having some level of focus on it. I neglect it in areas outside of just the bench training now. My pecs are definitely something I could maybe put a little more focus on and should down the road, but it is a less critical aspect of strongman and something that, at least for a lot of the accessory training, I've stripped away because that concept of waste. I am limited in how much energy I can utilize for recovery here because of my struggles with matching my caloric expenditure. So I don't want to steer growth and development towards muscles that don't need it and pull it away from what I'm actually trying to develop. Not to say that I don't want to continue to develop my pecs, as I was saying, like it is used in strongman, but I've got to have a selective focus here. So not going to do anything that's very pec heavy for an additional lift, but I am going to do rows to work the lats a little more, since they are kind of neglected with the clean and push press. They're used, but not enough. Same with the pecs. I'm going to do a relatively strict. You might see me getting a little Yates rowy at the end and using some leg drive, but the main emphasis with this is just doing lats. I'm going to just keep the same weight I had on the bar there. With rows, usually I will be doing things at a higher volume for the majority of my working sets than I would for a lot of things. A lot of my main strength developing, neurological developing lifts are things that I pyramid up typically, and so it'll be like speed reps of higher volume in descending volume, of course, up until a very low rep range. Very little of any of that to failure, but like my warm-up sets are actually kind of working sets where they're speed rep sets, just not to failure. And that's not the case typically with rows, because I would say the majority of how lats get used in that sort of motion, that kinetic chain gets used in strongman, would be, for instance, something like the arm over arm events, where you're doing a continuous pulling and just having to keep going back and forth. And essentially you do need to be more conditioned to metabolic fatigue in those muscle groups than you need to drive strength and neurological adaptations. There's certainly stuff that having strong lats helps you be able to lift more for in these events we do in strongman, but it's something that I would say your primary focus with rowing type movements would probably be better served focusing on volume and developing your work capacity in that regard. So I'm not going to be doing these sets to failure this time, because I do have some other exercises I'm getting to after this that I don't want to be fatigued going into for, but rows are something that I would often do to failure for a lot of my sets. If I am going to do that, I'd probably have them at the end of the workout though, just because I try to limit how much I'm fatigued during my main working lifts, because there's rarely just one core lift for the day. There might be 2 to 4 that I'm doing that are my primary movers are being focused on throughout, and that I'm trying to give all of my effort to is really those lifts, and I keep them at the center of my workouts typically. This being at the center this time still, and being one of those kind of primary mover ones, means I'm not going to be doing it to failure, just because for the remaining lifts I still want to be able to go into them with full effort. But just going to do some barbell rows here with the easy curl bar still. Try and keep relatively strict form. You might notice that, like if you're a bodybuilder, you might critique my back angle quite a bit, because I'll probably have a more upright posture than maybe you would try to go for. It's not something I'm really intentionally doing. I just have a hard time holding lower positions. I recognize it definitely is going to give me a little bit of an advantage in how much weight I can pull, so you'll typically see me loading up a fair bit of weight on rows if I'm going to be holding that position and not get into a full bent over posture. this time around, since I'm just doing it in my basement here, I'm not going to be going heavy with it. I'm not at the gym right now. Again, most of my filming, at least for right now, will probably be here in the basement. So just going to be doing some lighter rows for sets of 20-ish. We'll catch you after that though. I'll probably have a little more to talk on after, but done with talking as I left. All right, catch you guys after I catch my breath. All right, I decided I wanted to get one of the accessory lifts in here. I wasn't planning on doing this one, but decided to be a fun one to throw in today since the other day I was showing off some of the weird lifts I do. This would be, you could call it a cheat curl, but I think it'd be best to call it like a clean curl or something. But it's something that I use for overloading that last portion of the lift with the strip curl, which is what I was saying was my weakest link in it for sure. I think you'd find that's the case with a lot of people. But doing this clean curl, I mean, it helps you get the weight up until that final portion because you're cleaning the weight, and then you're finishing off as you would a normal barbell curl, easy curl, bar curl. Definitely not something I encourage you to jump into doing heavy ever. I mean, I have a lot of experience doing this stupid lift, but this is a risky one. You'll notice that when people are doing deadlifts and they do double overhand, a lot less bicep tears than when they're doing mixed grip. That one with the inverted grip, a bicep tends to tear. Well, with this, you're doing a jerking clean with both arms in that position, as opposed to a normal clean where you'd have them in the safer double overhand position. So don't think that this is an inherently safe lift in any capacity. It's something that you definitely want to work into building some tolerance to with heavier weight over time. I am used to spastic movements at this point would be probably the best way to say it. I'm resilient to tendon and ligament tears at this point. I mean, it's not that it can't happen, but you'll see me doing lifts that at times I would advise you to just kind of work your way into, not trying to make them a main exercise of the day, just sticking with it super light just to play with it and figure it out. This would be one of those things that if you try it, maybe start with just like 10s on the bar or something. If you can handle even the same weight I can for this for a curl, like start very light. It's not going to feel good if you're not used to it. Once you get used to it and you learn the patterns a little bit for how to properly move throughout, it'll feel fine. Like this doesn't hurt me at all when I do it, but it is something that I recognize has a great degree of inherent risk to most people performing it. So it's not something I'm advocating you guys replicate. Unless you're competing in a strip curl competition, it probably has no place in most people's workout. Or I guess if you're doing strongman, I would make the argument you could do this because you just got to be accustomed to anything in that sport. Same with, I guess if you're a CrossFitter, I would argue the same thing, like just be used to lifting weird stuff. It's part of the sport. But outside of those contexts, I don't think I would encourage most people to do that. But I wanted to show you it. It's a weird lift. It's kind of fun. Going with the inside grip for this one, you will notice that when I was doing the cheek curls the other day, I had the outer grip, which makes it a little harder. This inside grip, not only does it make it easier for me, that curl position, which is going to vary person to person, which position's easier for. I think from what I've seen, the vast majority of people definitely have an easier time with that inside grip on most of the easy curl bars. It does kind of depend on the bar too, but for me too, this is a little safer. The position it puts my wrists in, puts my tendons under a little bit less strain. That outside position, I definitely can feel, even just resting my arm, more tension throughout what's being used and involved in the lift. With this, I have a little bit more leeway. I mean, I'm not yanking the weight up loose, though. You are still tensing up before, but it's not pushed quite as far to its capacity in terms of things being maybe stretched outside of their normal range of motion. This is a little bit safer for me to go with the inside grip, so that's what you'll see me doing. It just feels better too, and that's also what I will do with the easy curl bar in the strict curl comp, is take that inside grip so I can handle more weight. You will see in a lot of my training, though, I'm not going to be using that. I like preparing for variability. That did not go right. Case in point, not the safest lift to be performing, even though I'm pretty used to it. I haven't been going for heavier reps with it lately. I've just typically been sticking to at most the 45 and 35 on the bar there, so probably shouldn't have done that. Didn't hurt anything, I'm fine, but there's a reason I bailed there. You could see that went pretty wrong, and if I would have maybe tried another rep, I definitely could have potentially done some major damage there. So it's about knowing yourself, and sometimes I don't. I've definitely had my fair share of injuries. I'm knowledgeable about the sport. That doesn't mean I'm not an idiot at times too. So you'll see examples of that here and there. Hopefully not too many.